Good morning, everyone. Welcome back at ECCMID TV Live. It is time for me to announce our new guest for today. And very happy that just arrived here in our studio in Cologne, Germany, a local ESCMID member who is actually not from Cologne itself, but from Düsseldorf, which is a city quite close by to Cologne. I'm happy to introduce to you Colin Mackenzie, who is the head of diagnostic microbiology at the Institute of Medical Microbiology and Hospital Hygiene in Düsseldorf, Germany. Welcome to you, Colin. Very happy you managed to come here to our studio.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You are also a member of the ECCMID Programme Committee.
Yes.
So much of the content that our viewers are following online this year has been through your hands, or?
Well, some of it anyway.
How did that process go?
It was interesting. It's my first time on the Scientific Program Committee, so of course I don't have anything to compare it to, but it was all done online and worked, in my opinion, really very well. It was fantastically organized. The staff have done a great job, and it was challenging, I think, but it's possibly not any more challenging than doing it in another way. Of course, one misses the personal contacts. I'm certainly looking forward to meeting all the people that we sort of saw on Zoom live, perhaps in our future meetings. But it was, all in all, I think, really a good experience. Yeah.
Good experience. And how did you reflect on the quality of abstracts this year? Well, you don't have the comparison to other years, of course, but...
Yeah, I mean, looking through the abstracts, of course, we've all done abstracts in the years before. The quality is at least as good as it was last year. I mean, I think science hasn't had any kind of major dip in the quality in the last year, as many other things have.
Yeah, and there were some topics that really caught your interest, right?
Yeah.
I think artificial intelligence is one of the subjects that interests you. Could you explain a little why that is of a great interest to you?
Yeah, I mean, I also feel that, I mean, we deal a lot in diagnostic microbiology, but also in the clinics we deal a lot with data. Look, we have a huge amount of data that's available to us, and we don't really use it and process it optimally, I don't think. And I think with artificial intelligence has been for a while, but I think it's sort of pressing on the borders of becoming clinically applicable. And I think in some areas it is clinically applicable, but not in a general kind of way. And I feel that
it's not implemented yet broadly.
The transfer from the sort of the idea and the programming and stuff isn't seen in the clinics. I mean, you don't really come across it a lot, but I think that will be.
Is that why do you think that is? Is that because clinicians don't see the value of machine learning, or is it difficult to implement in a clinical practice?
I think it is difficult to implement. I think it's difficult to validate. I think it's new. I mean, the idea of giving up or being supported by expert systems it's nothing new. We do it basically all the time. But I think the next step I think it is quite a big step for clinicians to sort of. They perhaps feel that they're giving up control, and of course that all has to be validated. There's lots of legal issues too that need to be sorted out. I mean, if you use, I mean, in the laboratory we do it all the time. We have a lot of sort of black box diagnostics that, I mean, but we're used to that. I mean, you put a clone of a bacteria into a machine and you mass spectroscopy and you get a result out. I mean, that we're kind of used to by now. And I take responsibility for whatever result comes out. I think using neural networks and AI and all that kind of stuff won't be much different to that.
No.
And I mean, I don't understand mass spectroscopy, and I certainly don't understand neural networks and computer terminology. So there's not really a huge basic difference in the two, I don't think.
So what do you think needs to be done to, well, close that or to bridge that gap that is still between the valid or the results of and the value of AI and machine learning and really using it on a larger scale in clinical practice?
We need more bioinformaticians in the diagnostic lab. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to have to come from there. I mean, and it's not just diagnostics; it's also clinical management. But I do feel that the diagnostic labs need more bioinformatic expertise, and that can only come from bioinformaticians. And I think it's part of the sort of personnel resources that labs just probably to a large extent don't have. I mean, they're all research at the moment, but perhaps that'll have to change. We need people that have much more savvy in terms of computer and artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Would you say that we may be limiting ourselves by the generation of even more data, and the more we learn, the more we can do, the more we test, the more we diagnose, the more limitations also accompany that?
I'm not sure that we limit ourselves. I mean, of course, you could also say that you cannot have too much data. I mean, you just perhaps don't use it properly. And I think that there's certainly not much point in having too much data that's not relevant, and which of course we do. I mean, it's difficult to know what's relevant in every situation, and situations change, especially with critically ill patients. I mean, they're changing all the time. But I'm not sure that data is then can be too much. Certainly for the individual decision maker at the bedside, it can be extremely difficult to sort of have an overview of all the data and make an informed decision. I think that is extremely difficult.
And more data you have, the more difficult it is to see what is the really essential information and what is just supportive information.
Well, that is where experience, of course, plays a huge role. I mean, the more experienced the person is, the more he realizes or she realizes where the difference is and what can I ignore and what is not to be ignored.
Yeah. So there's hopefully a larger role also for AI and machine learning in the future.
Yes.
You were also, when we were having a little chat before, talking a little bit about the gap between the knowledge that we have from basic science and, translating that to the patient, really, to the clinical work. Could you diverge a little bit on that matter?
This is obviously not a new problem at all. No. I mean, there's an awful lot of basic research that takes place, and of course, that moving into the field where it's clinically applicable is probably the same in many aspects of medicine. I think many sort of technological advances, if they're taken up by companies, tend to get pushed through quite quickly. And of course, if you're talking about sort of bioinformatics and or new biological startups and that, I mean, it can take quite a while for things to be processed to a point where it becomes interesting for investors to move it forwards. And I think everybody's always seen many instances where really interesting technologies or advances just take a long time to get through. And of course, we all have had examples of advances on technologies that appear at first look to be really great, and in the end, when you try and apply them in the clinic, you find, well, it doesn't really live up to its expectations.
And does a congress like ECCMID, can that aid in bridging that gap or speeding the process up, do you think?
Oh yes, I think that any kind of get together with different people from different branches, I mean, be it basic science, clinicians, big companies, investors, I think that kind of a mixture is always good. I mean, it's just like evolution. I mean, put everybody in a big soup and you're going to end up with humans and elephants and rats.
Oh, it's a very nice metaphor. ECCMID is evolution.
Well, I hope so. I hope ECCMID's an evolutionary process, yeah.
Yeah, and this ECCMID specifically, talking about connecting the different, well, maybe silos is not the right term, but the different areas of expertise on the same topic. This ECCMID had a number of One Health sessions going on.
Yeah.
Does that bring it all together for you?
Yes, yes. I listened to a couple of talks by engineers and that kind of stuff. One yesterday dealing with processing sewage and that kind of stuff, which is something that is totally outside my realm of ideas and expertise, of course. But it's really interesting to hear how complicated it is, and it's so important. And I think that
does it also involve you in your line of work?
Yeah, because I think antimicrobial resistance is a huge problem. I mean, I think everybody's realized that for a number of years now, and until we deal with the environmental impact of antimicrobial resistance as a pool, we're not going to be able to, we can't reverse anything, but we won't be able to sort of slow the advance of resistance, I don't think.
And talking about the One Health, it's bringing together all these different disciplinaries. Could you imagine yourself in the near future working together with environmentalists,
I'd love to.
veterinarians? But could you see it happening?
At night when I'm dreaming, yes.
So what is necessary to get it together? If you feel the urgency, you see the value being presented at this year's ECCMID, for example, and probably under other scientific gatherings as well.
Yeah.
When does the time come that you feel like we need to implement this in our own working environment?
I think it's probably something that you kind of need a trigger, and often triggers are totally unpredictable. It's sort of something happens. I mean, just the chance getting together of two people at, for example, a congress like ECCMID, and if you just happen to be at the right time in the right place, and you speak to this one person, and then all of a sudden you've something happens. I think that, of course, you can plan. You can say, okay. I mean, I could then say, look, this is something I really need to get involved with, and then start actively looking for partners. That is also a way of doing things. Which one is more productive or happens more often, I couldn't tell you.
So is it fair to say that you personally are very much hoping that next year in Lisbon, Portugal, there will be face-to-face meetings in the hope of getting triggers for changes necessary?
Yes. I think that, I mean, I think it's been talked about so often. I don't think we need to go into the sort of the whole advantages and disadvantages of virtual meetings. I mean,
no, we're happy to be here.
It's great that it can happen, but I don't think anything can replace just being there. I mean, everybody's at home, everybody's at work, and sort of fitting the ECCMID in between. It would be really interesting if we could have some breakdown of the data after the ECCMID. How many people actually were at home? How many people did work in between sessions and all the rest of it. I mean,
Yeah.
and doing work from a distance from Vienna, for example, is something completely different to doing ECCMID from
Next
home.
to your
And
normal production.
I
Yeah.
would be really interested
Yeah.
to have
How
a
was
breakdown
this
of
for
that.
you personally? Where did you log in? From home?
From work and from home,
And
yeah.
from home,
And
yeah.
I mean, I must say, I find logging in from home, it has lots of distractions.
Yeah. Depends on the situation, of
Yes,
course.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But-
I mean,
yeah.
in my personal
Yeah.
situation, there were enough distractions.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as you said, there are disadvantages, but also a lot of advantages. So
yeah.
one of the biggest probably being that all this data that has been generated and shared this year's ECCMID will be available for everyone to look up on demand for the coming 3 months. So
Yes, fantastic.
that is the advantage. I would like to thank you very much for driving over here from Düsseldorf to come live into our studio for this chat. I enjoyed it very much, and I hope our viewers have as well. We will be moving on with our next interview at 11 o'clock sharp. I will be talking via live stream with Professor Guido Werner from the ESCGEM, the chairperson of ESCGEM, the study group on epidemiological markers. So tune in at 11 and we'll see you then.